Hello, hello. Welcome to Saturday Sound Bites. This is Veronica Sofer, and I'm your host for Saturday Sound Bites. I'm so glad that you're joining us. If you are watching on Facebook, make sure you let us know that you're here. Type in the comments. If you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay. And if you're listening on our podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. We want you to not miss any of our episodes. So we are just super excited that you're here for another edition of Saturday Sound Bites. We have a phenomenal guest today. You guys are just going to be blown away. We talk about marketing here. We talk about visibility strategy. We talk about public relations, how to get your name out, how to get your branding, how to make sure you're aligned. We share tips and techniques, strategies, and expertise. And this week, I've got another guest for you. So he's going to be joining us in just a second. You're going to find all his contact information in the comments or in the show notes. So let's go ahead and welcome in Vince Warnock to the show. Vince, hello. How are you?
Hello. I am very good. I'm so happy to be here, Veronica.
Great. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm in Texas, so you can probably hear that. Vince, you're not from Texas.
No, just slightly further out from Texas. I'm in Wellington, New Zealand. Yeah.
New Zealand. Oh my goodness. So just so you guys know, we are international. We absolutely are international. We're thrilled that Vince is here and he's going to share with us some phenomenal tips and strategies. And he's going to give us a little bit of background. Vince is with Chasing the Insights. And Vince, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, your background, and what people can expect to hear from you today?
Sure. Okay. So background. Oh my goodness. Well, once upon a time. No. So I have a really weird background. I trained as an electronic computer and software engineer. So I did all three disciplines at the same time. And then realized very quickly that despite my passion for technology, that really wasn't what drove me or motivated me. What really did was people. It was understanding human behavior. It was understanding why people do the things they do, what inspires them, what motivates them, what challenges them, etc. And then I discovered, after then looking into psychology and looking into human behavior, I discovered the intersection of the two. So when technology meets that human behavior, that's marketing. That's digital marketing in particular. So that became my new passion. Kind of fell into it and discovered that I'm relatively good at it. Then did a stint on radio as well. I am a huge radio nerd. I worked on one of our largest radio stations here as an on-air announcer for a number of years. It was my dream job, literally my dream job. I got to do it and I was so happy. The only problem is dream jobs often, they live up to their expectation from the job perspective, but it certainly wasn't a dream salary. They pay so poorly. I was like, oh my goodness, so I needed to do something different. And then just through the years, I've always been kind of in and out of corporate life versus entrepreneurial life. So I left a really good job in digital marketing, where I was the digital marketing lead for an organization here, and started my own startup and built that over 4 years. It was a high growth tech startup in the accounting space. And at the end of that 4 years, realized I'm done. I'm finished here. I'm on the road all the time with a family. I don't get to see them. This isn't healthy. I'm not enjoying this. So we had gone through a rapid growth. We raised $1 million worth of seed funding. We had crossed off a number of different milestones, and we were at that point where I could go, you know what? I'm going to step back from the business. I'll stay on as the majority shareholder, but I can hire someone to replace me. We can get somebody else in there. So made that decision, and that would lead me back into corporate life. But then while doing that, we had a lot of people wanting to buy our company, and so we went through a whole acquisition, which was an emotional roller coaster up until the point where you see your bank balance. Then suddenly it's no longer
Yeah.
an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
You're like, hey. I always said it was like selling my baby, and I'm like, whoa. And then you see your bank balance and go, actually, I've got two real babies here, or two real kids. Does anyone want them? No, joking. So that was a crazy journey, which then led me to Cigna, where I worked for Cigna Insurance as the chief marketing officer. Which was a wonderful time. Honestly, I met some of the coolest people. We got to do some really amazing stuff. We actually bought a company that was the same size as ours and merged it in. So I got to go through this massive transition, which was a lot of work and a lot of stress. But through all of that, I started to feel that pull again. And part of this was I published my first book last year. I don't even know what year we're in now, maybe the year before. I'm losing complete track of time. It's just been crazy. But published my first book, which is all on digital marketing. It's called Chasing the Insights. And these are the methodologies that I've implemented that have got me to where I was. So these were the things I knew worked. And it should have been an incredibly proud moment. like publishing a book. It was something I wanted to do for some time. I wanted to be a published author. So I was really excited about this. But I went through a massive spiral. Like as soon as that book published. In fact, someone said to me, like I was getting ready to publish and someone said, well, don't do a book launch. Like nobody goes to book launches anymore. Like they're dead. And I'm going, ha ha ha, amateur. I'm a marketer. Hold my beer. So organized this event. It was an amazing event. We had 100 or so people there. I had guests fly in from all over New Zealand, from Australia to come and see it and join in. And these were some of my peers in the industry. It was an incredibly supportive environment. It was amazing. So it should have been, especially as a high extrovert being surrounded by people, this should have been one of the highlights of my career. But I didn't count on something happening there, which was every time I'd do a signed copy of the book, because that's what everyone would want, I'd sign the book, give it to them, and each of them said something along the lines of, oh, thanks, I can't wait to read it. And every time I heard that comment, I can't wait to read it, my stomach would not. And that's when I started to feel very exposed, very vulnerable, very raw. That imposter syndrome that we all seem to encounter as entrepreneurs, its teeth got a lot sharper and it dug into me. And that night, I just kept replaying over and over in my head all these fictional conversations that I created. Things like, oh, people are going to think, who do you think you are writing a book? Or what makes you think you've got the right to say something different from anyone else? Or I started reading the book, what an amateur. All these different things that were going through my head. And I spiraled really quickly. For about 2 weeks, I didn't even want to talk about my book anymore. I just thought, you know what, I'm done. I'm really busy. And I really actually was really busy as chief marketing officer. Obviously, it's an insane job. But I turned down, and this is the only part of the story, by the way, I genuinely regret, was actually turning down media interviews. So we had,
Oh,
I think it was Forbes, CIO magazine, and Diginomica all wanted to do these big 4-page spreads, and it would have been amazing. But I just went, oh, sorry, guys, I'm just too busy at the moment. And it wasn't until one of my mentors actually called me up, and he never calls me, by the way. He's one of those people, you have to book time with him. And I'm like, oh, and he just called out of the blue and said, look, how's the book sales going? I went, oh, and I told him they were actually going really, really well, which was awesome. And he went, oh, that's good. And he goes, but I haven't seen anything out there. I haven't seen you talking on social. I haven't seen any press. I haven't seen anything like this. And I was like, yeah, I'm just relying on word of mouth. I'm so busy at the moment. And he went, nah. He says, I'm going to call you on that. And he asked me something. He said, do you know what I go through every time I publish a book? And this, by the way, he's published over 8 books. They're all bestsellers. And then he took me through the journey that he goes through every single time he publishes a book. And it was the exact same thing I'd just gone through. And that did 2 things. It immediately made me feel a lot better because I thought, wait, I'm not alone. That what I've just gone through isn't crazy. Like I'm not mental. Well, I might be mental. It's okay. But this is normal that people go through this kind of stuff. Even people that I admire and I look up to as well. So it immediately kind of lifted that shame off of me. It lifted that kind of
yeah.
pressure off me. But the second thing it did was it motivated me to talk about it. And I thought I need to take action on this. Once I have highlighted that there is this thing that I'm dealing with, I highlighted this gap in my life, I thought, right, I need to take action. So I wrote this post, put it on LinkedIn actually, and just talked about all of that, just basically explained that story I'd just gone through. And then in there at the end I said, and now I'm going to take action on this. I'm going to tell you, you need to buy this book, right? If you're an entrepreneur or you're building a business, this book's going to help you. I know that because I poured my heart and soul into this. This is a damn good book, and it's based on principles that I know work. Like my track record in market is just incredible. It's because of this stuff. So I put that out there. That was scary, by the way, putting that kind of article out there. And it did 2 things. One, immediately spiked book sales, which was like, yes, this is awesome. I was like, I should have done this earlier. But the second thing, and this is the bit I didn't count on, was it opened up so much dialogue. The amount of people that reached out to me and said, hey, I'm going through the same, or I've been through the same, or thank you for taking the courage. In fact, I had a senior partner at one of the big 4 firms here in New Zealand. And he's somebody who in the industry, I won't name him, I don't want to embarrass him, but in the industry, he is very well regarded. He used to be a mentor of mine. He was somebody who basically most of the early stage businesses here look up to. And I had caught up with him. It was not long after I put the article out there, and he was at the same event as me, and we hadn't seen each other in years. He invested in one of my previous startups, and he caught up with me, and he goes, oh man, so we gave each other a hug and all this, and then he suddenly changed tone. He said, oh, I saw your LinkedIn article. Can we have a talk? And immediately I thought, oh no,
Uh-oh.
here we go. He's going to be, are you okay? Do we need to lock you up? Or do we need to get you a counselor or something? I was like, oh, sure. I'll give him the time. So we jumped on. We were at this party. It was a big birthday party for our agency here. And we went out onto the balcony and he started talking to me and he said, oh, I'm so glad I read that. And he said, because I've never felt like I fit in. I've always felt like an outsider. And I'm looking at this guy who is considered to be one of the godfathers, basically, of startups in New Zealand, the godfather of technology companies and entrepreneurs. And he's telling me that despite the fact he's been a senior partner at a big four firm for most of his life, he's never felt like he fits in. He's always felt like a fraud, and he's always worried that people are going to find him out. And to hear that, two things, it broke my heart. First of all, I'm like, how does it, like, he's gone through this for so long and never talked about it. But it also made me realize that I need to keep this conversation going. I
Mm-hmm.
need to actually get back to where I'm good at, which is actually helping entrepreneurs, helping people at the forefront of where I can see the impact, rather than at the senior executive table at a huge enterprise company. So that started that pull away from that corporate life again. I knew I needed to write my next book, which I'm writing at the moment. In fact, I'm writing two books at the moment because I'm silly, I guess. I don't know.
Why not?
Yeah, why not, eh? So I'm writing a book called Anti-Perfect, which is dealing with this concept. It's basically rewriting your brain. It's creating your brain's new operating system, essentially, to deal with imposter syndrome, self-doubt, and that self-sabotage. But then it also started this pull towards dealing more with entrepreneurs at that front line. And once that pull got stronger and stronger, it became really easy for me to make the next decision. And that was
Wow.
to leave an insanely well paid job, by the way, and obscenely well paid in some cases, but to leave Cigna and basically go off to my own, build my own thing. So I thought, right, in January, I made the decision. I'd said to our CEO over Christmas, I think this is a pull that's happening. I need to listen to this. She at first was very hesitant. It was like, no. Tried to tell me we could take some time off this. You can go down to part time. There's so many different things you can do, but none of these things felt authentic to me.
Right.
And I said to her, look, I know this sounds silly. I know it sounds insane to a lot of people to leave this kind of job, but I really need to follow where I'm called, and I really need to follow where my heart is leading me. And that was to do something different. So left Cigna just before COVID. Oh my goodness, perfect timing. I felt really bad. My old colleagues would call me up and go, "You jerk." Like, it's your problem now, not mine. So I left that, and my goal was to then just write my next book.
Mm-hmm.
That, as I said, morphed into writing two books. It also morphed into the kind of next phase of my passion for radio, which was launching my own podcast, which has just been a crazy awesome ride, having amazing guests like you, Veronica, on the show. And then it also led me to working in more frontline stuff and helping entrepreneurs. So picking up a lot more coaching work and just seeing the breakthroughs, particularly through lockdown. That's been one of the most amazing things ever. Is I started when I left Cigna, I started by working on the book. So I was interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs, talking to them about their mindset, around the limitations, around the battles that they have internally, the dialogue that goes on inside them, which, by the way, we're all in the same boat. Mostly, if you're an entrepreneur, you've probably gone through
Yeah.
similar or are going through similar. So I was dealing with that and, talking them through and interviewing them. And then, of course, COVID happened. And at that point, we ended up in a situation where all of these businesses I was dealing with in the US, Australia, New Zealand, suddenly had no income at all.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them had the same overheads. They had the same people to try and pay, the same mouths to feed, the same rents, the same power that they had to pay for, all of these different kind of things. But no money was coming in the door at all. And, it was one of those moments where I'm going, I can't ignore that. I can't let go of that. These are people who are in need. It was breaking my heart to see them go through such anxiety and stress. So I said, right, okay, I'm just going to have to do this. So I stepped out and said, look, how can I help? What can we do? And in a lot of cases, they had no idea, but we just sat down and I got them back to why they're doing what they're doing. Took them back to what they actually offer their customers, and not just the products that they sell, the services they sell, but actually going through a process of identifying the need that their customers have and how they meet that need. Like a good example of that is a friend of mine who I was dealing with, who's a chiropractor. So she runs a business where she has a clinic, but she also goes into large corporations and does chair massages.
Hmm.
And okay, right. So she would go in there, and companies would let her in, and they pay her per massage and all this kind of thing. And it was to help de-stress the clients, the people that work there. And of course, when lockdown happened, everybody works from home. There is no companies to go in and do chair massages with. Plus, of course, face-to-face contact. Forget about it. So she was kind of freaking out about that, and I took her back to, why do these companies let you in the door?
Hmm.
Like, why do they allow you on the premises? And she's like, oh, to massage the clients. I'm like, is it? Or, is it something else? And we step back, and she goes, well, actually, I said, what benefits does massage give the clients? And she was like, well, it enables them to be stress-free. And, these companies have realized that if they've got stress-free employees, they're far more productive. And so I got her to test something, and she called up each of the companies that she worked with and said, look, obviously it's a very challenging time at the moment. Your staff are going through a massive amount of anxiety and stress, and they're all working from home, and they're trying to juggle all these things. I'm worried about them. And it turns out the companies were worried about them as well. And she goes, obviously I can't come in and do chair massages, but what if I could do group Zoom calls where I teach them self-care? I teach them breathing exercises. I teach them how to look after themselves, teach them self-massage, all these different kind of things. And it was a resounding hell yeah from
Oh.
every company she dealt with. And
Hmm.
that's when she realized, when you come back to the actual value that you're adding as an entrepreneur, it's never the product or the service or the, whatever it is that the system that you're creating. And there is more to it than that. So kind of pared it back, and then she started. Now, by the way, she makes far more money doing this than she did
Yeah.
doing chair
Yeah.
massages, which
I
is awesome.
bet.
But I started seeing these kind of results from each of the companies that I was dealing with, and that made me go, okay, that's it. This is where I am now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going to work with entrepreneurs who are favorite people in the world, outside of my own family, of course, and maybe comic book nerds, because I'm a
Uh,
giant comic book
Yeah.
nerd, so
Yeah.
I
I've
love
got a
geeking
heart
out.
for them too.
Yeah, but entrepreneurs are incredible. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, I just genuinely think you are cut of a different kind of cloth from people. Like,
Hmm.
you are one of the very small percentage, and we need to get realistic on this, very small percentage of human beings that have the courage to act on your convictions.
Hmm.
To go, you know what, I'm going to create something that doesn't exist. I'm going to birth something into existence, and that is just something so special. So I love that. I love working with entrepreneurs to help them to kind of bring their dream to life. Like, I've got a program that I take people through, like these different stages where they deeply understand their company, and then we audit all their systems, all these kind of things. But we get to the point where we get to the last stage of this, which is where we look at the value that you're adding to your clients, to your customers, to your potential customers. What is the value that you're offering them, and how do you get value back from them? So it's
Hmm.
just honestly such an exciting time.
That's an amazing piece of nugget there, and I want to go back to celebrating the ability of your client to be real with herself
Yeah.
and take aside, oh, the fear that I'm losing money and I'm not going to be able to go into these businesses, and applaud you for coaching her through that next step of pivoting. And the word pivot has become the word of 2020. We still have a few days left in the year, but it really is about rethinking, repackaging. And as an entrepreneur, how you package and how you message is absolutely going to make or break what you do next. And so I love that you are taking people through that and that you have a process in place, because it is all about the message. It
Yeah.
really is.
100%. And I've seen this as well. Part of the work I do is helping people to define their story. And
Hmm.
there's so many different elements to this, and so many different reasons why this is so critically important for people. But I've got one of my clients. I'm not gonna shame him at the moment and tell you who he was. But one of my clients is just this incredible entrepreneur. But I remember sitting down with him and saying, look, let's work on your pitch, because his pitch was. I can't think of a polite way to say terrible. So his picture is terrible, but what he does is so amazing. Like, honestly, I'd worked with him previously. So when I was chief marketing officer at Cigna, he was one of the companies that we would use for some of the project work that we were doing. And always I saw this like different thing, like this different aspect to the way he approached it. So I sat down with him and said, look, why are you so passionate about doing what you do? And he said, oh, because I make really good money. And I'm like, Face palm. No. And I said, why do you love working with the clients that you love working with? And he goes, oh, because I love producing really good quality work. And I went, no, that's not it. So
Yeah.
we sat down and I interviewed him and I took him through basically his whole life journey. And we took him through his earliest memories of working, or of encountering the industry that he's in. And immediately he lit up. As soon as I said, oh, what was the first time you ever remember encountering this? And he goes, oh my goodness, I remember. He goes, I was with my dad, and my dad used to take me and my brother to the movies, and we would go and see Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. It was such a good time. But I always remember it brought us together, and it gave us this common language, and we would talk to each other. And I'm going, oh my goodness, this is the
That's it.
passion.
Yeah.
This is why you do what you do. And then we
Yeah.
talked through his journey, and I got this thing called the beats method, where I take them through all these structures, these beat structures of how their story unfolds. And we would just do all of this, and then I compiled it all together and said, look, here are the different things. This is your why, this is your what, this is your how, this is who, this is all the different aspects of your story. Let's piece it together. And I try to teach them it's not necessarily linear. So
Right.
it's a story they can flow in and out of depending on who they're talking to. And then he went away and he kept practicing. His homework was always to practice this pitch and this story. And he came back to me just before Christmas, and we sat down and I said, right, okay. I was working through some stuff with him. I said, oh, your story, your pitch, like, give it to me, just off the cuff, now, go. And by the time he had finished his story, I sat there and I'm going, okay, hold it together, Vince, hold it together. Don't cry, don't cry. Like, it was just so inspirational, and it tapped into what makes him so special. And like I said, in dealing with this guy, dealing with his company, when I was at Cigna, I knew that they had something different from everyone else. There was just something about them where they were so much easier to deal with. Like, whenever you gave them a project, they would capture what's inside your head and bring it to life. And not many companies can do that. And now I know why, because when you hear the story, you hear the passion behind it. I was like, that's it. And I said, the minute that you tell people that story, that is where the value is. They will beg to work with you. So it was just, honestly, I feel like a proud dad. It was just such a proud moment. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I kind of left there and I sat in the car for a little bit going, oh dear, hold it together, hold it together.
That's fantastic. And that's really what the benefit of working with entrepreneurs is, that you get inspired from each other. And that's what being part of community is. And that's why I love that we've been able to connect and share our stories and share our communities, because there's inspiration, there's growth, there's all of those things all come together. And it's really exciting. So tell us how people can work with you. I mean, you've mentioned a few clients. What kind of structure do you have available for folks?
Sure. Well, I don't have any. No, joking. I've got it kind of in three tiers, is the way I word it. So the top tier is the one-to-one coaching. So that I'm very selective. If anyone wants to, it's not about what you're offering. It's not about the services or anything like that. It's really about how open you are, how passionate you are, how much you want to impact other people. So I only work with clients that really do genuinely want to make an impact. So if it sounds like you, then do reach out to me on social. I can go through a process with you and assess and see if it's the right fit. I will always be very honest and open with people about whether or not I feel like I can help them. But the other aspect of that is I'm launching a group program in February. So at the end of, in fact, the first week of February, we've got a virtual summit coming up, which is going to be a free summit for people to hear from some of the best people in the industry around positioning yourself for growth for 2021. I really want people to kind of crush their goals in this coming year. And then at the end of that, I'm launching a group program, which is where I can take far more entrepreneurs through that kind of framework, through that program, and help them. So all of those kind of details will be on the chasingtheinsights.com website. But then I have two other tiers. I have the lower tier, which is the free tier, which is where basically the Facebook group where I support most of the entrepreneurs in there. There's the podcast, obviously, where I get to talk to some of the most amazing entrepreneurs, some of the most amazing marketing, PR, and salespeople in the world. So you get to hear their journey, why they're so passionate about what they do, but also you get all these insider tips and tricks, which are really cool. So they're going to help you for your business. And then I've got the next tier in between those two, which is a thing called the Insiders Club. So it's a way that people are supporting the podcast. So they pay $10 a month US. they get access to exclusive content. So as well as the podcast stuff, they also get additional interviews with each of the speakers. They get master classes from me. It's where they can go deeper on these things. So if they're really passionate about moving the needle for their business, this is where they'll get the resource for that. So I've got downloads, all sorts of things. And then I'm doing some mini master classes and stuff like that as well. So I just love keeping busy, Veronica.
Yeah,
Honestly,
you are so busy. I
yeah.
mean, I got to tell you, if you haven't checked out his podcast, please do. Chasing the Insights is fantastic. The content is amazing. Check out the group because that's where the magic's at, inside the
Oh
group.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We just had a Christmas party, so we got a whole pile of them to dial into a Zoom call, and I read out my Christmas Ninja story. It's a children's story I've written, and we celebrated. It was just so much fun. Honestly, I love that. It's like a second family to me. It really is. But I love those guys to bits. They're so supportive, so encouraging, and yeah, it's amazing seeing them grow and seeing them kind of challenge each other as well. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, and I was glad I got to peek in for a little while and watch some of the antics, and I enjoyed it. So.
Antics. That is a good description of
Yes,
it. Yeah.
thank you. Well, I am in marketing and public relations. So,
Yeah.
no, this has been fantastic. Guys, if you haven't had a chance to check out the website, please do. All of the details and links are in the show notes. Vince, you did a phenomenal job. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your stories and these great tips, great nuggets. It was fantastic.
Oh, thank you for having me, Veronica. Any chance that you and I catch up is, I mean, I know this is for, the podcast and for your Facebook community, all this kind of thing, but I don't care. This is selfishly, this is just you and I catching up. So any chance to talk with you. Yeah.
I love it. I'm pumped and I'm ready to crush 2021. I mean, I'm right there with you. You got
Awesome.
me going for the day. So, all right, Vince, we will see you soon. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Just truly, 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 we are ready to say goodbye to 2020. We are ready to launch 2021. Please make sure you're checking out some of the resources from our guests. Vince is phenomenal. His group is truly amazing. I've enjoyed so much of the content. It's really helped me. And we all have opportunities to grow. None of us knows everything. We all need to be learning from each other. We all need to be sharing our content. Trust me, there are going to be things that you haven't heard before. So make sure you're engaging in the groups, make sure you're engaging in the communities that you're involved in, and share your knowledge. So we're going to go ahead and sign off. I'm so glad you were able to join us today. Again, if you're watching on the replay, #replay so we can get back to you if you have any questions. And thank you for being with us. If you are listening on the podcast, please hit subscribe. We want you to subscribe and be able to get notices every time we drop a new episode. We are just so thrilled that you were able to enjoy this episode. And we look forward to seeing you guys. Make sure you check out veronicavsofer.com for the latest and greatest. We've got a couple of summits coming up. We're going to have one next Saturday, January 2nd, High Powered 2021. We're going to share some great processes with you. And it's a mini summit. So it's just a couple of hours, but our speakers are phenomenal. Great tips. We're going to talk about copywriting. We're going to talk about managing your books and your finances, how to have a good mindset. We're going to talk about visibility strategy and communication. We've got a great lineup, so make sure you check that out. The information will be in the comments as well. Thank you so much for joining us. I enjoyed spending another Saturday with you. And as always, I'm sending you lots of positive energy and light. Have a great one.